Hey guys, welcome back to Primer Podcast. I'm Jessica Flake, part of the Spiritual Formation team. Back for a brand new series this week, all about Jonah. And Pete, I'll admit, I don't think I've ever had sit in a whole series on Jonah before. I only hear, I really remember some things in my teenage years when I was helping out.
Yeah.
Like Vacation Bible School.
Yeah.
Talking about Jonah. It's really the only time that we've ever talked about Jonah a whole lot.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we've turned Jonah into, a fairy tale of sorts and made it kind of like a kid's story because there are these extraordinary events that take place. And so most of our conversation about Jonah in a context of adults is whether or not it was a whale or a fish or how many days that could Jonah survive in the belly of a whale if there's, carbon dioxide, and does a fish's stomach actually have air in it, right? And we get so hung up in these details and we miss out on what God is really telling us through the story. And it's one of the most convicting, powerful lessons that we can learn. And so I want to, kind of put to rest some of that conversation because, I think that ultimately, if the fish is real or the whale is real, it's a miracle, right? In the same way, we don't need to be able to explain that. In the same way that we see miraculous healings take place, in the same way that we see loaves multiplied from just a handful to 5,000, right, or even more than that. There's not a scientific explanation for that. It's a miracle that takes place, and so this very well could be a miraculous experience, and it also could be a powerful parable that's being told here, that's pointing to kind of imagery that's drawing them in of a real life experience that now is drawing us into these visual representations of death and pain and hurt. And so the point being is regardless of how we read this story, let's not lose sight of what's really happening.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately, as I've studied the book of Jonah, it's a story of expecting the unexpected. Expecting the unexpected from God, expecting the unexpected from our world and from our enemies, and expecting the unexpected from those that are meant to be kind of the religious insiders. And so today we're just really starting in the very beginning of this unexpected story and starting to wrestle through what's going on with Jonah and how might we see ourselves in Jonah's life. So can you start by reading Jonah 1 verses 1 and 2? We're filled with all sorts of funny words.
Yeah.
My goal is now to give you tongue twisters and trip you up. So we'll be diving into Habakkuk next week and go from there.
Well, I Googled these.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay on them?
Google is an expert Hebrew translator.
Is it?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Maybe not.
Okay, so the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me.
Okay, so what do you expect? So God has just spoken to his prophet Jonah. We know that Jonah is a prophet. We see it in Kings. What do we expect a prophet to do when God has spoken and given that prophet a direct commandment?
I mean,
without our preconceived notions, if we hadn't heard it in Sunday school
this week, but knowing previous prophets, what they have done is that they would follow God's commandment, and they would go and have this, really a longing to want those people to have changed lives, and not only for them, but to know that is their that's the will of God, that they were supposed to follow the will of what God had asked them to do.
And this isn't even a hard commandment. It's as far as prophetic invitations are, this is pretty straightforward.
Right.
go to a fallen city and prophesy what's going to happen, right? And that's basically standard. There are any number of challenges that God gives other prophets that are far more difficult. And yet Jonah does the unexpected. So what happens in verse 3 here?
But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed to Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed to Tarshish to flee from the Lord.
Okay. So what does Jonah do?
He runs away.
Okay. What sticks out to you about that? What's odd about that?
I guess maybe that he had a specific place that he was going to. And maybe that's not exactly what you're getting at, but
well, I think at some level, tell me more about that.
I think like for me, if I was going to run away, I would run away to somewhere that's safe for me.
Okay.
Right. And so maybe Tarshish is a place that would be something that he is familiar with and he loves or whatever it is. So that is something that kind of stood out to me first. But, and I don't know the surroundings, so I don't know the land, right? But like, I also don't know that I would have jumped on a ship either, right? So like I probably just would have walked as far as I could, or it wouldn't have been something that I would have went.
Right, there's a certain element of uncertainty or on the ship, and so I think you're hitting at it, and there's no right answer to this. It's just something that sticks out to me is, so Joppa is 500 miles from Nineveh. There's why does he run? There's no need to run. If he doesn't want to do what God says, he can just stay put. He doesn't have to run. Tarshish is 2,500 miles away. It's considered, at this time, Tarshish would be like us saying Timbuktu. It's just considered the farthest location you can possibly go. Boats that sailed to Tarshish to deliver goods and those kind of things, it was expected that they would not return back to Joppa for 3 years. So this is a picture of running as far away from God as he possibly can. And to your point, there's something to Tarshish, right? This is as far as I can get away from this.
That safety.
Yeah, right.
He's thinking is safe.
Yeah.
Which to me, I think it's kind of funny that he thinks he can escape God.
Yeah. Well, and I think about in our own context is that, I think there's a powerful implication here. It's like God is going to invite us to do things that feel uncomfortable. We talked about this a lot in our last series, the process of sanctification, what it means to respond to God's promptings in our life. And it's going to be hard to say yes every time. But I think one of the encouragements that I hear in these first 3 verses of Jonah is at the very least, don't run. Right. And I think we live in a culture that runs in our thinking, in our worldview, in our politics, is that when there is something that comes up against us that feels uncomfortable, we don't want to sit in that mess. When there's a relationship that has hurt us and a friend that has hurt us, we don't want to sit in that discomfort. Instead, we become defensive, right? And what's that defensiveness? It's distancing ourselves. It's fleeing from the problem. We don't want to sit in a conversation about challenging political issues, right? Instead, we want to say, this is my side, that's your side, and let's yell at each other until we're blue in the face. What is that? That's running, right? And I think for myself, at least, I feel uncomfortable staying put, because by staying put, I am leaving open the possibility that God might do something in my heart.
Right.
And I don't want that to happen. And so I want to run, because if I run, at least I'm taking that in my mind. I'm taking that away from God. So why do you think Jonah doesn't want to go to Nineveh in the first place? What is it about this commandment, knowing that this is his job, right? This is what he does. He goes to to cities, and he shares. So what is it about this that you have been taught or understood? Why is Jonah not interested?
Well, just from, verses 1 and 2, it says that the great city of Nineveh, so you see the great city, so it's a larger city, has become wicked. It's in its wickedness, has come before the Lord. And so it makes you feel, it has made me feel like it's something that Jonah has against that city and the people there.
Right.
And so, but you also wonder if there's a doubt in himself as well.
Okay. Tell me about
that. Just in the sense of like, if you feel like there's too much that God's asked you to do, a lot of times we can feel like this is something we have to do, and we forget that it's God doing it through us. Right. We're really not doing it. It's something that God's asked us to do that He's actually doing, but we're speaking the words or whatever it is. And so you kind of wonder if Jonah was questioning his own self, and which I know there's more to the story, but I do, I've known in past times when I feel like God's been nudging me to do something, a lot of times I forget that it's in His strength, not in my own strength. That we do things.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to all this, and again, I don't know that we have a specific answer necessarily, but I think there's an element of not like having a bias against the Nineveh is part of Assyria. Assyrians are notoriously evil people, have been enemies of Israel. Just awful things done at the hands of the Assyrians. So we talk about how sometimes we look at our generation and our culture and say, man, it's never been this bad. Like, take a look at ancient Assyria and say that again, because crucifixion was invented by the Assyrians. We'll put it that way. That's them. There's probably a fear element, right? Where they typically take their enemies and pierce them through with stakes and place them in public to die publicly in front of everyone, right? So I'm not totally looking forward to that reality in my life. And then I think, there probably is this space where it's an insecurity of like an imposter and sure, I can preach to these safe places, but if I go in and prophesy here, who am I, kind of thing. But I find it really interesting. So we're going to fast forward all the way to the end in chapter 4 here, verses 1 through 3. Jonah has gone. He's been in the belly of the fish. He's gone to Nineveh. He's preached. Nineveh has repented, and God has changed His mind basically, and is not going to punish them anymore. And I think Jonah is going to demonstrate his true motivations for fleeing here in verses 1 through 3.
But to Jonah, this seemed very wrong, and he became angry. He prayed to the Lord, "Isn't this what I said, Lord, when I was still at home? That is what I tried to forestall by fleeing to Tarshish. I knew that you were a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. Now, Lord, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live."
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess I'll punt to you. What do you see there? What's his motivation for fleeing now? Hindsight.
That it really feels like he had lost faith of a whole community of people, that he felt more like those people should be judged. And he feels like God was wrong to save them. And he knew God to be the gracious God that He is, and so he didn't want to. He didn't want to even go. And so it is.
It's so I just find that so compelling that he's just like, man, God, I knew you were going to be merciful. Like, I knew that you're the God of mercy, right? I know God so well. I know God's character so well as a prophet that I knew you were going to forgive them. And I knew you weren't going to bring your wrath upon them. And that's why I didn't want to go, God. Right. And I, really what's at play here is Jonah has perceived the appropriate judgments for the behaviors, the sin, the life of Nineveh, and he knows that God will be merciful, and he has decided that his ways, his judgments are greater than the Lord's. Mm-hmm. His will is greater than the Lord's. And so the only way to ensure that his will is done is if he runs in his mind. And I don't know like what the answer is for us today, but I find myself sitting in this place asking, who is it in my life? It might be an individual. It might be a group of people. It might be a way of thinking. It might be a political affiliation. Who is it that I say, God, I know better. Mm-hmm. And I know if I'm present to that person, God, you're going to resolve something in us. You're going to restore, restore, redeem, provide reconciliation. And God, they don't deserve that. Yeah. They don't deserve my love. They don't deserve your love. They don't deserve your mercy. They don't deserve my grace. And so we would rather just separate ourselves as far as we can from that. And like I said, I think that's probably different for all of us. And hopefully none of us have the extreme of Jonah, right, where we're like, God, just take my life rather than forgive that person.
I think we can do that sometimes to people that have hurt us. Mm-hmm. Right. And so like we just can't understand how God can love someone that has hurt us so badly. And so like I think of that being a possibility, that maybe there's a lot of hurt from Nineveh on Jonah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And even not, we can't understand how God would love them, as we understand how God would love them. We just don't want any part in being that love.
Right.
And so, you go ahead and resolve that somewhere else or with someone else, not through me. Right. Exactly. So really good conversation. And I hope a fruitful one for everyone at home, and as just reflecting on the study guide and praying through together. But we can't wait to see you soon.
That's right. We'll see you soon. See you next week.